Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second installment of TRG 30, a virtual roundtable where all of us around the globe can gather to learn from each other, be inspired by each other as we all grapple with this crisis, pandemic that's affecting us, our families, and certainly our sector. I'm glad and grateful to be joined today by my colleagues, or I'm glad to be with my colleagues. Stephen Skripik, who's our VP of UK and Europe operations at TRG, and a man whom you're going to get to know more throughout this broadcast and beyond, Stuart Nicole, who's director of Purple 7, one of the leading data analytics companies in the UK and Europe. His insight and our partnership we'll talk about in a moment. As you registered for today's session, like last time, I asked you, what are you thinking about? You submitted questions. Like last time, most of what you were interested in talking about was short-term. Literally, 78% of you last time and this time are interested in short-term issues. They're changing, though. Most of what you're interested in talking about are loyalty, revenue streams, the management of income. But what is changing are questions and your interest in managing your schedules, cancellations or not, how you map and message internally and externally, and how you manage your teams. TRG 30 will be about themes that we can latch onto together. And your membership in our LinkedIn group, TRG 30 Virtual Network, is where we're taking your specific questions to, so that we can answer them and address them. So themes here, specifics there, more to come there, live consulting sessions and more. I also want to say this to you. Now is a time as leaders in our communities. Arts and culture helps communities thrive. We must help our communities thrive even now. And as leaders to your organizations too, we have to think about the urgent needs. That's what your questions are oriented around right now. But we also have to start moving to anticipate the needs of our teams, our communities, our patrons in coming weeks and months and for the rest of the year. And finally, while this time is terrifying and disruptive, we also must seize on the opportunity it provides us for our sector to think in revolutionary ways so that eventually there's evolution for the field, evolution for the sector that helps us thrive beyond and through. You're motivating me in that way, and you'll continue to motivate each other as we talk each week. So let's get to it. We, Purple 7, Stuart and I and our teams, have developed and launched a COVID-19 sector benchmark. You've likely seen it, the news about it in The Guardian and Stage and other places. The intention of it is this, that we can work together to understand and respond to the landscape we find ourselves in. It is and will be free. This asset, this benchmark that is designed to help you understand answers to these questions through live data feeds, analysis, will provide us this ability not only to act differently and appropriately based on what we're seeing as a global sector, but also to lobby and get information that can help us provide counsel to our teams. This is where you can go. We will email this also to you at the end of our session today so that you can get more information and sign up to be part of the free benchmarking service and provide your data to us so that we can make it available to us as a sector. Here's what we're seeing. On a top-line basis, in the United Kingdom, the attendance impact as a result of the COVID crisis, you can see last year's 7-day rolling average is in the blue teal line. And this year's rolling average is this green, actually, sort of teal line. we start to see a shift in advanced bookings and advanced purchases here, and a real decline in the UK as the COVID crisis advances. The same is true in the US. So again, advanced bookings for last year, advanced bookings and ticket purchases this year, and around March we start to see a massive drop-off in that activity as the COVID crisis gains traction, foothold, and hits our awareness. All of you have been dealing with the transaction management associated with this reality. Some of you for longer than others. Some of you are still asking questions about how to manage and handle some of these realities. So Stu, your team helped us take advantage of this data, and we, for this conversation and for users of the benchmark, have mocked up some scenarios, a middle, best and worst case scenario as it relates to the proportion of refunds in a medium, large, and small organization, right? So this is the medium-sized organization, 570,000 pounds.
That's right.
So if I click to the large one, the organization is even bigger, and the numbers get bigger as we look at different scenarios. What else would you have me do here?
So what we tried to do is model out the impact of how we handle all of these tickets that we can't fulfill in the future. And we modeled out how many tickets were in the next 3 months that are very uncertain, certainly here in the UK and definitely over in America, where we may not be able to undertake those performances. And so looking at how we handle those refunds as to whether we ask for donations, whether we get exchanges or credits, which is all money that we retain as an organization, or whether we give out a refund, which is money that we give back to our customers.
That's right. So if this is a medium-sized organization, a mocked up Jill's pretty good performing arts organization.
Yep.
In the worst case scenario, there is cash and income that is lost to this refunding activity. And in the best case, if we're actioning around this transaction management, if we view it as an engine for cash and income, a very different scenario plays out at the organizational level. This kind of dashboard and more are the kinds of insights that we're trying to galvanize around right now, listen to the field about needs right now, and ensure that we're delivering through this benchmark. So more from you, Stu, as we go, please. And for you who are viewing this roundtable with me, like I said, this transaction management is an engine during this time. And as we saw just, I think, yesterday in Arts Professional, Spectrix has released that with their client base, 67% of ticket buyers are returning those tickets for donations, part of that cash and income that we're keeping. In the case of Boston Ballet, messaging that says, if you're a ticket holder, no action is needed right now on your part. The Washington Post reported about American Shakespeare Center in Virginia. 15% only and fewer are asking for a refund. Even in Italy, thanks to my SMU students, there's activity like this happening. Now, not every patron is created equal. A first-time ticket buyer is going to be looking more likely for refunds than a long-term buyer. But a question for you that I want to inspire you to think creatively about is the role that people play in connecting with your patrons right now. You all have guest services, you have box offices. Where are they working when they're in lockdown, when they're sheltering in place? Or do they have the right Wi-Fi strength? Are phone lines running to them? Are they behind chat engines, and do they have the right tech so that when you're communicating with your patrons and preserving this engine for your income, they can play and are playing a critical role in this for your sustaining through this crisis. More data, Stu, from the benchmark, and that's who's engaging and supporting the sector. Again, advanced bookings, a snapshot from the dashboard, right? So the 2019 data is in blue, 2020 advanced bookings are in teal. Clear data.
We just compared the two side by side using behavioral segmentation based on frequency. You can see a massive drop. I mean, there's two categories here. One is your new ticket buyers who generate a huge amount of revenue for most organizations, and also your 3 times plus ticket purchasers who have purchased with you recently. They are also a significant part of your revenue stream. But here we can see that there's a big reliance now on our 3 times plus and a declining reliance on our new ticket buyers for all future sales.
All right, we're going to come back to this. When we think about, hang on one second, y'all.
Jill, just while you step and find your way here, as we look at this data, this is about people that are booking in advance right now, that have purchased since the start of this crisis began. And for us to think about as organizations, if right now we're activating around advanced sales, who are the best segments in our database to be communicating with? And Jill, you'll talk on to those loyal patrons and how we communicate with them.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Loyalty and segmentation. Most of you know a lot about your loyal patrons. Are you aware of even one basic around their age? Another piece of data that we've pulled out of the combined data set in real time is this piece of data that helps tell the story about how people by age are advanced booking or not. And what we can see is that the older age cohorts are not advanced booking at the same rate that younger age cohorts. You can imagine during a crisis like this one, where I'm in lockdown or sheltering and concerned about my health, that might be a consequence. Again, what is your team able to do to lean into these patrons as you are going through this time with them? Now, let's talk a little bit about this maintaining of loyalty. Current stakeholders, of course, are the ones TRG has built a business around helping the field understand loyalty, measuring it, supporting it, monitoring it, and they are in fact the ones, as we've seen, who are helping us through, so to speak. But as I look at the messages, the websites, the campaigns across the sector, across nations, we are still very organizationally focused in our messaging. I want to encourage you, inspire you to think in their shoes. Remind me, inspire me about why arts and culture, theater in my community is important, and perhaps even create an esprit de corps within the base. So you all know in TRG parlance that there are advocates, buyers, and triers, major donors, major members, very active ticket booking patrons, less so, and first timers or less frequent. But imagine if you were able to engage those different kinds of patrons in telling a story about their support to your communities. Arts Club Theater Company, our client in Vancouver, is embarking on this as we speak, identifying people who will be ambassadors and say publicly, I am supporting Arts Club today, and I'm making this up, $5,000 donor. Next category, I am supporting Arts Club Theater today, and I'm a subscriber. And I am supporting Arts Club Theater today, and I'm a frequent ticket booker. These categories of patrons, segmented, can inspire others in your loyal patron base to continue participating. Royal Manitoba Theatre Center in Winnipeg is using personalized videos. Below this, you would click on and see a message from an artistic director. And Rob Markey, who literally, with Fred Reicheld, wrote the book on the Net Promoter System and score, is interviewed on this recent podcast about how business is managing consumer relationship at this time. And they hit on this eureka that you all already know, and that is that people are answering phones. Some of you in this virtual room are old enough to remember that when volunteers called volunteers. Lean into this technology called a phone and FaceTime. Lean into your telefunding and telemarketing partners now as we work to connect directly with our patrons through and during this crisis. Finally, a new phenomena, investor relations conference calls. If you're not doing this, consider how you can create regular opportunities to be talking with your stakeholders directly. Locking down and solidifying our relationship with our current loyal patrons is key. It's also key to remember that we must attract new and re-engaged lapsed patrons in loyal behaviors. Ask them to buy into the future through VIP status and benefits or other intrinsic benefits. San Francisco Playhouse is doing a really interesting job of this right now, characterizing ways to be their hero, and on their homepage, articulating the names of the people who've made the decision to buy a pass or make a donation, become a member. South Coast Repertory Theater, as I described last week, selling into the future and remember why. A university in Italy, recognizing that donors give for different reasons and some of them want agency and to direct their philanthropic dollars. You choose. And an example I was just made aware of by my friend Laura Williamson yesterday, Shakespeare Theater has created a Phoenix Fund. And their new artistic director is leaning into this heavily, again, satisfying a donor intrinsic benefit of being part of the solution. Okay, we have to dig into our loyalists. We have to mount the campaigns for subscription, for membership, for philanthropy. Some of you were asking the question, I haven't. Is now the right time? And our unequivocal answer is yes, and personalized, and keeping in mind who they are and what their variables might be within their relationship with you. All of that must happen. And we also need to consider how we can create an incentive for a broader group of people to shoulder this community impact together. If you go back to this data that we looked at from the COVID-19 benchmark, you said, and we're reminded that this group, the 3 times group, is the group where we're seeing advanced bookings. And there's a huge volume of patrons here where we're seeing slowdown or no bookings at all.
Yeah.
You and I got a wake-up call about that and said, what do we need to be telling the field? And I began to think about my husband who's in the wine business. We used to buy futures in wine. Invest now for what is to come. How can we create an incentive and a desire on the part of our communities to buy futures in arts and culture? We're saying we will be back. Can we invite and compel them? And what would it take? To do that, I think the first step is to check our assumptions. I still hear evidence of talk about subscribers matter for these reasons more than members. No, members matter more. We just launched that subscription package scheme. There aren't enough of them. We must take care of our members, etc., etc. What if we were to think differently? What if we were to think about relative investment and ability to invest in arts and commit now? This I would contend is a revolutionary way to think that could have an evolutionary positive impact on the sector. Leaders, let's de-silo this conversation. We're still going to mount subscription campaigns and membership campaigns, philanthropic asks, but let's come together and ask, what are the resources, the benefits that we have that can be put against those patrons based on their ability to invest now in what we're doing and what we'll be doing in the future with frequency and financial investment. If we do that, we will create a change for the field. And boy, there's shifts coming, especially in inventory management for those of you who run performing arts venues. There will be seats that are released. There will be shifts in participation. This is a time for us to think about what is possible as a result of those shifts. My friend Sarah Holmes at the New Wolsey Theater is beginning to talk this way. It's times like these when we really see opportunity to come together as a community. And guess what? A little something, a lot of you doing a little will help a lot. Choose your gift. We will recognize you, and we are here to chat with you, to talk with you directly. Our people are ready to go. There are other revenue streams now. I'm going to push through this because I want to get to your questions. We will talk about the ways that you are actioning galas, foundations, and governments, and other things. I'm mindful that it's you who does this work. Stephen, help us get to the questions that are with this group right now.
Sure, and there's a lot coming in. Thank you, everyone. The Q&A button at the bottom is the place. If we can't get to you today, we're going to answer in our LinkedIn group for sure. There is a lot of talk, particularly around these donation asks, that is fascinating. People reporting different variances, people reporting changes in donor behavior. What I'd say broadly to that is that's the point of this benchmark dashboard, right? We want to monitor and understand the behavior that's happening and changing over time and react to data accordingly. And a broad response to those that are asking, I'm not seeing these figures. I'm not seeing people donating at 30%. I'm seeing a change in donation behavior. We've got to think about the people that are asking these questions on our front line relentlessly over and over again. What are they asking? What's working in your organization? What's resonating with your patrons as you make that ask on the phone? And where is the bias of the ask to? Make sure you're leaning in really hard on your box office folks here, looking after them, changing them round. Relentless phone calls all day is tough. The Spectrix data that you saw from the Arts Professional article, it's a ticket converter tool. It's an automated tool that you send an email and ask people to do that. We're seeing some examples for organizations that are choosing to phone their most loyal patrons. They're getting higher proportions of donations and using the tool for those, think about certain segments, as Jill mentioned in the database, to ask them to automate that process. So there's lots of advice on the LinkedIn channel around that, language to use and how to communicate those, I would say. Jill, specifically a question here. How should arts nonprofits balance monetizing virtual offerings right now versus focusing on increasing audience loyalty for future events and performances?
Well, it is people who will participate, invest now and in the future. Putting content online and gating it eventually it will be a part of our future income, but it will be people who are purchasing. So my strong recommendation is that you get your organization, people, tech, and resources tight and solid around the relationships with your patrons, and then direct them to the product that you want and need them to see.
There's a lot of talk around the uncertainty we have right now around when venues may be able to open. And so there are organizations that are sitting, as we've seen in the revenue examples that Stuart shared, that people are sitting on money in May and June. When do we make the right decision to cancel those performances? What are our opinions on proactively canceling now versus waiting to see? And also confidence around launching later programming. So in the UK, we're waiting to launch autumn seasons in many organizations. In the US, we're in the midst of subscription renewal. Do we continue that in this period of uncertainty, or do we sit and wait?
Let's not sit and wait. That's the point about buying futures. So what that means to you, you'll have to tailor. But encouraging people and exciting people to invest now in the future is, from our standpoint, a requirement. Now, scheduling and rescheduling, canceling now or waiting. Part of the reason for this revenue tool that Stuart created is for you to be able to see what's at risk and what happens as you have exchanges and credits and refunds. And it will be a delicate balancing act. In some cases, you may not cancel if you operate in a particular city. And so that decision is made for you. In other places, you can have agency to make this decision yourself. The patrons that you have that are buying in advance, the most important piece is to make sure you're getting contact information and that you have people talking to people as if and when you make decisions. That's the blanket statement that I would say to all of these situations.
There's also anecdotal data, evidence in the data, which is people who have been putting on sales for the autumn season have seen a huge spike in sales. So there is confidence in the market for people to buy those futures. And then, what they're hoping is that they'll deal with the issue of having to cancel those performances if it becomes necessary. But at least there's an ongoing relationship with those clients.
That's right. Yeah, it's the ongoing relationship that's the thing.
Let's popcorn a few questions while we've still got 3 minutes to go. Stuart, quick question. Does your advanced sales data tell us anything about how far out people are or are not buying?
It does, actually. Yeah, we go as far out into early 2021. Certainly in the UK, we'd like to build some more data for the US so that we can really start to see that more clearly. But definitely, sales are pushing back. So we're seeing a spike in Christmas sales. So people are still buying for those. That's the cash cow for the UK market. So that is still very much on the cards. But all sales are suppressed at the moment, so it's about maximizing those for those future performances. But yeah, we're seeing those sales come through for future 2020 to 2021 season.
There's some further response here around holding back, particularly in reflection to your data around the older demographic not purchasing. And here's the thing where we can communicate confidence to those patrons around, we know we're in uncertain times. If you're not able to attend, here are the benefits of purchasing early. We will refund, we will exchange. You're not going to lose your money. Your communication of confidence in your messaging is really, really key to encourage those patrons to book. And look, we're going to monitor our council here and monitor the data with this benchmark tool to see if particular messaging can spike sales for those demographics. That's why your data is key here.
Testing benefits and what motivates people to move too will be part of that evaluation, no doubt.
There's a question here around, again, in this period of uncertainty, do we want people to donate tickets, or do we want to hang on because we might be able to exchange them so we don't have to remarket that show again? What's the best thing to do? Do we ask them to donate now, or do we hang on and wait to see if we can exchange them?
Well, I'd be interested in your take, Stephen, but if there's a chance that the event's going to happen, I would say hang on to them and we will be in touch with you. We all hope that we can deliver on. But if it turns in the eventual that we can't, then let's talk credit. Then let's talk alternatives to refund. We see the math, the impact of the refund.
I think, someone referenced a holding pattern situation for a lot of people right now. And the important thing is, if you are hanging on patrons here, your communication with them and acknowledgement, not so infrequently, right? There's a lot going on right now, but we do need to keep in communication with them at this time. We can't get to all of your questions. We're at the end. You are going to receive a follow-up email with details of how to join our LinkedIn group. You should submit further questions there. We'll answer some of the ones that we've not responded to here today. You'll also get a copy of this presentation and the data. There's questions around context for some of the data in this presentation. We'll make sure that comes with it too. We've had to move fast to give you some great content here. Jill, I'll leave you to
Yeah. Next session is April 1st. Thanks always to my mamas who are our research team. Please remember the TRG virtual network on LinkedIn. This is where a lot of this will happen. And remember, arts are more important now than ever. Let's not forget this. Let's be inspired to tell our stories. We'll look forward to seeing you again next week, where the themes will continue. And we appreciate you and the work that you're doing on behalf of arts and culture. Thank you, everyone.